That was quite the arm workout. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. You might be thinking, Chris, you didn't do that many different movements. How many movements do you need to do to grow a muscle? It's not a trick question. Technically, just one. If you don't believe me, ask your little brother, ask your nephew, ask your cousin. When they're doing push-ups in PE, and that's all he does. He doesn't even go to the gym. He doesn't have weight class. He doesn't have any of that stuff. He just does push-ups in PE every day. 30 push-ups, then he does 20. Somehow he's been getting stronger. Somehow he's been getting bigger just from fucking push-ups. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, he's a teenager. You know, he's young. He's gonna make growth. He's gonna make gains no matter what. Okay, well, then, motherfucker, compare him to the same kids that aren't doing those push-ups, and then get back to me and let me know if the kids who aren't doing anything at all have the same rate of growth. But I'm not going to fight with you guys on the number of sets that you should do per movement. I mean, as a rule of thumb, you should be doing it at least 2. 3 would be great. But what you have to remember is even though today was arm day and I worked my arms as a result, biceps are still getting worked on back day. Triceps are still getting worked on chest day. Granted, they're not getting worked as aggressively, but they're still getting worked. Why is that relevant? Well, because don't expect to have as good of a isolating arm day as you would a chest day or a back day, being that those movements, those muscle groups really don't come into play, back and chest, on any other day. So they're able to rest efficiently so that you can work them efficiently when it comes time for that day again. Arms is obviously a little bit different because arms are kind of universally always being worked, with the exception of leg day, of course. Depending on what kind of movements you do for shoulder day, you might work triceps for shoulders with some of your overhead movements. But either way, biceps are definitely getting worked on back day, and triceps are definitely getting worked on chest day. So don't feel obligated to do a 4 to 5, 3, 4, 5 movement for biceps and triceps on arm day. I mean, you can if you want to. By all means, do what feels good to you. That's what I always say. Do what gets you results. But I'm telling you, as far as making the most use of your time, if you're the kind of person that does 3 to 5 movements on arm day for your biceps and triceps for a total of 10 workouts total, try eliminating just 1, or if you're really brave, try eliminating 2 of those movements, then get back to me. You might find that you have a little bit more energy to hit the remaining movements a little bit more intensely, which translates to quicker and better quality of growth. That's my food for thought. But I am finding that from a cardiovascular standpoint, this bulk is really taking its toll, which is why it's always important to do cardio pretty much every day if you can. No one says you have to run a mile every day or run a marathon every day, but you know what you're going to want to do is you're going to elevate your resting heart rate by at least 20 beats per minute for ideally 20 to 30 minutes, and then boom, that's your cardio. You know, if you wanted to, you could do, like I really like doing the stair stepper, where my heart rate is elevated even more so for approximately 10 minutes. That's not going to work for everyone. I've been doing this for a while, so it works well for me. I've just been bad at doing it because, you know, I'm human just like anyone else. I say, oh, I'm bulking, you know, I don't necessarily need to do cardio. But you don't necessarily need to do cardio on a bulk for the sake of being lean, because you shouldn't expect to be lean on a bulk. If you are lean on a bulk, relatively so, you may not be eating enough calories, and so you might be shorthanding yourself as far as the gains that you're able to make, both muscle and strength wise on the bulk. But anyways, still do your cardio for the sake of not being winded in between sets, because if you're not doing your cardio but you are doing your sets intensely, you're going to find that you're pretty gassed in between movements. And whereas that is a good indicator that you are doing your movements effectively and intensely, it's also an indicator that you're letting your other muscle group, so to speak, go by the wayside. Talking about the cardiovascular system, which obviously isn't a true muscle group, but it is an overall state of well-being that should be trained for the sake of your well-being. So, but we're done now. We are going to go pick up the wife from work. Gonna go home, have me a steak dinner with some rice, after which I might have some treats in the freezer to make up for the lost calories today. Not really lost calories. Here's what happened, right? I had all that bullshit happening with my car, and so as a result, my eating wasn't exactly on point today. I'm not going to end up on like a calorie deficit or anything. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about me. But my first meal for the day may or may not have been until 2 p.m. Now, at first thought, you're going to think to yourself that that's a bad thing, and you would be partially correct. But what's the point of dieting, whether it's bulking or cutting diet? You want to make sure that you're getting your macros in a 24-hour period. Now, of that 24-hour period, you're sleeping approximately 8 hours at least, ideally. So 24 minus 8 is how much? 16. Very good. So you really only have 16 hours to get in your food. But ideally, of that 16 hours, you do not want to eat within the first hour of waking up, because you're probably not going to eat within the first hour of waking up, because you're probably going to be in the process of waking up, getting dressed, brushing your teeth. And then an hour before bed, you would not want to eat for the sake of sleep quality and effective digestion. So instead of 16 hours, you now only have 14 hours out of the day to get in, 3,000 calories at least if you're bulking, roughly. So why is that relevant? Well, if I only gave you, how am I trying to say this? If I only gave you 2 hours to fit 3,000 calories worth in your diet, you would probably throw up at the end of that 2 hours, even eating half of the macros that you're supposed to eat daily. That's because nutritiously dense food, usually truly nutritious dense food, I'm not talking about like high calorie, sugary foods. They're nutritiously dense, but they're also like dense in general, meaning they weigh a lot. They're going to be difficult to eat. I mean, imagine eating 100 grams of chicken with 100 grams of rice in one sitting, just one meal. That's roughly half. That's half of a lot of you guys' daily macro intake for protein and carbs. But it would probably take you an hour alone for some of you guys to eat that. Now, I know that there's probably some monsters watching this that are like, oh, I can eat that in one sitting. I'm not really talking about you guys. I'm just trying to use an example here. So what I'm getting at is there's a reason why everyone eats. Not everyone, but there's a reason why originally bodybuilders were expected to eat every 2 to 3 hours. It's because it helped to spread out the amount that they had to eat within that 14-hour period, so that it was actually possible, so that you could actually get that amount of food down without getting sick. Now, there are certain special anomalies out there, myself included, who it really doesn't matter if your first meal is 1 or 2 p.m. You don't want to get crazy and let your first meal be 3 or 4 p.m. That's a little too late in the day. And if I'm being honest, 1 and 2 is kind of a little too late in the day. But the whole purpose of not waiting too late to eat, even though you can eat, half your daily macros in one meal, like me, I'll pound a 100-gram protein shake, and then I'll have 100 grams of carbs as well. What did I eat today? I had a 100-gram protein shake. I forget what the carbs are off of that, but 100 grams of protein. I think it's at least 50 grams of carbs. And then I had some steak quesadillas left over, which were about another 50 grams of carbs. Probably another 30 to 50 grams of protein in one meal. But the reason why you don't want to wait too long to break your fast, to have your first meal of the day, so to speak, not that I advocate for fasting, especially if you're trying to bulk, is that you don't want your body to begin to drift into a maintaining state of being. When you work out, you are creating a need for an excess of calories. And so when you create that excess of calories, you're supposed to meet that need for an excess of calories by supplying an excess of calories. That's why you eat at a calorie surplus. And then your body can actually use that calorie surplus. But what happens when you don't eat for an extended period of time, when you're on a bulk, when your body is used to a calorie surplus, is that mechanism that actually makes use of the additional calories begins to decrease in severity. It begins to kind of go dormant, kind of go to sleep. Your body thinks that it's beginning to enter a period of fasting where it now needs to bring down its levels of operation to more so an idle speed. We don't want to focus on building muscle. We don't want to focus on growing. We just want to focus on surviving right now because it's been 10 hours since our last meal. We don't know when we're going to get our next meal. That's how the body thinks. And so it would behoove you to not do what I did and wait until after lunch to have your first meal. Now, you don't need to necessarily have a full-blown meal for the sake of staving off that mechanism from happening. You could literally have just, a couple hundred calories leading up to your main meal just to prevent your body from kind of going into that, not hibernation because it's not quite that extreme, but going into that, idle state of being. So bottom line, don't do what I do don't do what I did today as far as waiting too long to have your first meal. Try to stay consistent. Today was just a fluke, albeit it's not every day that I have carb problems. But as I mentioned in my previous discussion, you have to make the best of the situation that's given to you at hand. And, dwelling on it in a negative fashion is never going to bear any kind of fruitful result. So take that for face value as you will. I think I've rambled on enough. I'll see you guys in the next video.